As the sunlight came through his window and his alarm beeped its shrill tone, Chris Woods began his day. Chris was a tall, thin man of 26, with messy yellow hair and a face full of freckles. Another day in paradise, he mumbled to himself as he switched off his alarm and wiped the sleep from his eyes. He showered and dressed and left for his job at the local megamart. On the way to work, Chris got a text. It was his brother Sean. "Hey Chris, wanted to remind you Ellie's party is at 1 tomorrow. Hope to see you there." Shit, Ellie's birthday, he thought. Chris was always bad at shopping for gifts, especially for his niece, who never seemed to like one thing for more than a few days. With the girl's 5th birthday only a day away, Chris was desperate. As he arrived at work, he glanced at the bulletin board by the entrance. Same old things, a couple of missing pet posters, yard sale ads, and business cards. But something else was there today. A new flyer caught his eye, arranged with only the words, "Westlake's Vintage Toy Store, Relics of Fun from Yesteryear," in a basic font, and a couple clip arts of children's toys and an address at the bottom. Looks like just the kind of place to shop for a kid with a short attention span, he thought to himself. Not able to afford an expensive toy, for it to only be played with once or twice after all, Chris decided he'd head to the store after his shift and check it out. The day dragged by, customer after customer, until finally, the clock struck 2. Gathering his things, Chris put the address into his GPS and headed off for the toy store. His device led him down several unfamiliar back roads until eventually he came to a small building that looked more like a run-down house than a toy store, save for the sign in the window confirming he was in the right place. Chris parked in front and made his way to the door. Though the closer he got, the more he realized how dilapidated this old building actually was, with vines growing up most of the walls and cracks spreading through the bricks. This place had to have been here for some time, yet Chris recalled the flyer he had seen looking brand new. An unease began to spread through him, however he pushed forward. The sign on the door read open, so Chris entered the small structure to be greeted by a strange, musty smell and a large room lit by a single dim lamp in the far corner. On the back wall was a shelf filled sparsely with old toys, yo-yos, and a few other pretty beaten-up items, as well as a couple rickety tables set up much the same. Just to the left, however, was the real oddity. A glass counter whose shelves were lined with old, presumably antique dolls was set up away from everything else, and much, much cleaner. Chris got down on a knee and looked over the strange little figures. They appeared to be handmade and crudely painted, their faces all in the same cartoonish style. Some had grins or funny faces, however some seemed dark, twisted into expressions of almost agony. A sudden voice startled Chris to his feet. "Ah, I see you found my dolls." Spinning around, he found himself face to face with an old man. The man was short and gaunt, with a bushy white mustache and piercing blue eyes that seemed to be looking straight through Chris. He wore a tattered brown suit that appeared as old as the building itself. Where the hell did he come from? Chris thought. As if in response, the old man replied, "I'm sorry to startle you, young man. We don't see many visitors around here." He extended a hand, and not wanting to be rude, Chris shook it, responding, "Hi, are you the owner?" The old man nodded and introduced himself as Judd Westlake. "I see you've taken an interest in my friends here," Westlake began. "These are very special, every one of them created with great care." His eyes had a strange twinkle as he spoke. "Would you like to take a closer look?" "Well," Chris went on, "I'm looking for a birthday present for my niece, and I guess 5-year-olds like dolls, right?" Chris chuckled, but the old man just stared. Chris felt a chill run down his spine. "So, how much for this one?" he asked, motioning to a black-haired doll with a silly, surprised expression. "Oh," Judd gently pulled the doll from its place, petting it slightly. "For your little niece, I think we can send Adam home with you today, on the house. Anything to make a little girl's special day a little more special." He smiled behind his mustache and handed Chris the doll. "Are you sure?" Chris asked. "I mean, these look pretty valuable. I'd hate to put you out." Westlake held up a hand to stop him. "I insist," he said, "but you must promise me. Make sure Adam is cared for. My dolls must never be mistreated." His voice was hard and serious as he spoke. "Of course," Chris replied. Something in the old man's voice just set him on edge, and he just wanted to get out of there. "I'll make sure he's in good hands." Westlake nodded and shook Chris's hand. "Farewell then, Christopher." Chris left, feeling the old man's eyes on him all the way out of the building, and started home. That night, as he lay in his bed, the interaction with the old man played over and over in his head, and he realized he had never told Westlake his name. The next day, Chris took Adam to his niece's birthday party and presented the doll to her. Among her other gifts, a new bike, some light-up sneakers, and other typical 5-year-old gifts. It wasn't much, but she seemed happy enough with it, and so that was good enough for Chris. As the party went on, the kids played and Chris made conversation with his brother and the other adults about the strange little shop. No one else had seemed to hear of it, but it was shrugged off and the conversation moved on to work and politics and other topics, until they were interrupted by the sound of crying. One of the other kids was playing too rough, and Adam had been shattered. A ball of ice and fire began to form in Chris's gut. He had promised the old man to take care of Adam, and now here was the doll in pieces at his feet. He knew he shouldn't have been worried about it, but the whole rest of the party, that sickening pain kept growing. The day moved on and everyone eventually left, and by the time he got home, Chris felt horribly ill. Going straight into the bathroom on arrival, he spent an hour vomiting, unable to get the image of that mangled doll out of his now painfully throbbing head. Why did it affect him so much, and why was he so afraid? Once he was able to stop puking, he took something for his headache and made his way to bed. That night, Chris was plagued with a horrible nightmare. Standing alone in the dirty gray room, he suddenly became aware of a gruesome scene of dolls weeping, their faces cracked and bleeding, dancing around the ruined Adam. The broken doll was screaming in agony through his painted face, his fragmented body writhing around in a puddle of blood and bile, as if it had been alive. It continued to grow louder and louder until all at once, the ritual stopped, and the dolls turned to face Chris as two icy hands slid over his shoulders, squeezing and pushing him down. He felt himself unable to run from the scene, unable to move at all, as a sickeningly familiar voice echoed through his head, the voice of Judd Westlake. "You broke a promise," he called out, "and now the price must be paid." Chris felt himself crumple to the ground, unable to move as the dolls circled around him, jumping and shrieking with demonic laughter through their still faces as a red haze clouded his vision. "Wake up," he thought to himself. He tried to move. Nothing. The laughter grew louder and louder as the dolls reached out. "Oh God, please. Please wake up." As the dolls touched him, he screamed at the top of his lungs through a mouth that wouldn't move. And finally, he awoke, his own screams still echoing in his mind. Oh my God, it was a dream, he thought to himself. He moved to get a drink, except he didn't. Try as he might, Chris was unable to move. No, he repeated over and over in his head. No. He couldn't blink or speak or even breathe. He tried to scream, but it was no use. As he lay there paralyzed, unable to even cry, he heard his bedroom door open and the now towering figure of Judd Westlake stepped in and looked down at him. "What the hell is happening?" he screamed out in his head, and once again, as if reading his thoughts, Westlake spoke out. "I told you, Christopher. My dolls must never be mistreated. And now you must take Adam's place." Judd reached out and picked up Chris with one hand, and as he walked from the room, Chris caught a glimpse into the mirror. In Westlake's hand was a doll with messy yellow hair, its freckled face frozen in a horrified scream. In Westlake's hand was Chris.